Welcome, everyone, to the Get Lifted podcast. This is Recovery John. Thank you for listening. I'm excited today to hear the story of Will, a close friend whose amazing story of sobriety has touched many. Will, appreciate you coming on
Thank
today.
you for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
No problem. So let's start by telling the listeners a little bit about yourself and your story.
Yeah, man. So my name is Will. Born and raised in New York. I got a long story, man. It started at a very young age. I'm an addict in recovery. I'll have 5 years in December. Obviously, my whole life, things were not normal. I had very addictive tendencies from a very young age, from dirt bikes to sports to skateboarding. Everything I did was like to an extreme. It was insane, actually. So, come from a pretty normal household. I mean, obviously every home has their flaws, but, growing up, I'd like to say that I definitely didn't go without. I had what I needed to get by. As I was getting older, around the age 9 or 10, my parents ended up splitting up, and it was a rough time. My dad was still living in the house for a bit, and that's kind of where everything started spiraling. I had my first drink. I think I was 8 or 9 years old. I reached up on the counter and took a big slug off my mother's, wine glass. And, it was weird. I wasn't like drunk, but like I felt different in that moment. At that young, I was 9 years old. I probably weighed like 70 pounds. I don't even know. But I felt different. I felt warm. And I was like, I actually like this feeling, And, fast forward a few years, my mom and my dad had separated, and my journey had began. I started experimenting with marijuana. Unfortunately, I got into a pretty bad accident, a snowboarding accident, when I was like 13 years old, and I was prescribed oxys at 13 years old, and when I took that first day, I remember when I was given that medication, everything changed. From that day moving forward for the rest of my life, I finally felt like that's how I wanted to feel. I'd never felt comfortable in my own skin. I've never felt that at peace with everything. All my problems went away in the matter of, a very short amount of time. Once that pill started working, everything felt better. So that is, the beginning of a very, very long and frustrating journey for me. I've from that point, my addiction immediately progressed. By the age of, 15, 16, I was full blown, doing coke, doing pills, running around like a maniac, thinking I was some like renegade, acting a fool. So fast forward just a little bit, come 16, 17 years old, I entered my first detox program at 17 years old right here in Carmel, New York, Arms Acres. They had an adolescent program at the time. And at that age, going into a place with a bunch of other kids that were not doing the right thing, they didn't want to be there, their parents, made them go there, I ended up just getting worse, At that point, I had, learned that you could smoke pills, you could shoot them, you could do this, you could do that. And, I started experimenting more from there, And within, after that short, I went there for like a detox. It was like a short, 7 days. They pretty much just put me on Suboxone. And, after that, I ran into, instead of pills, one day, the kid who I normally get pills from, he was all out. Instead of pills, he was like, "Oh, I can get you something, but it's not pills." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "It's the same exact thing. It's going to make you not sick. You're going to be fine. It's dope." And I ended up doing my first bag of dope at 18 years old. And that opened up a whole nother freaking can of worms because, at that age, I was spending on, back in the day, four pills at $25 a piece. That's a lot of money. or I can just, at that point, I think, a bag was like $5-10. So my habit went from oxys and perks to now heroin at 18 years old. Um, so yeah, from there, I mean, I can get into the war stories and all that, but from there, it was things really took a turn. Right after, not long after, I think I had just graduated high school. I actually went down to Florida for like my first real treatment program, um, and that was another mistake. I went down there, met a lot of people that I had no business being with and becoming acquaintances with, and from there, I went back home, relapsed again, got sent back down to Florida. I thought I was going to be there for 30 days. I ended up being there for 5 years, bouncing in and out of treatment. At that point, within those 5 years, I had gone to upwards of 20 programs. I've been through a total of 44 different treatment facilities from the age of, 17 to 26. So treatment is a big part of my story. I've spent a little over 3.5 years of my life in these facilities. And, Florida was another turning point in my life, a place, things happened in Florida that I thought would never happen. I picked up a needle for the first time in Florida. I tried a lot of different substances that I thought I was never going to do. Not everything. I mean, look, most of it was horrendous. I was not there doing the right thing. But not all of it was terrible because I did meet somebody out there. We were together. We ended up having a child. And around our 5th year down there, my girlfriend at the time was pregnant. We moved back up to New York to be closer to our families. And having my daughter was the best thing that's ever happened to me. But with that came obviously a lot of stress, a lot of struggles. I was in and out trying to get sober. And it definitely created a tougher variable now that I have another life to take care of. So, at this point, I mean, like I said, in and out of treatment continuously. My daughter's mother and my daughter figured it would be best to go move in with their family because I was still struggling here and there. And, they did that, and I continued to do my thing, for the first couple years of my daughter's life. And I actually, my daughter, I think, was almost 4 years old. I ended up I had been to 43 treatments at this point, and my mom, I'll never forget, me and my mom sat down and they actually bribed me. They were like, we'll give you $20, come over to the house, we'll sit down, we'll have some coffee and hang out and talk. And so I went to the house and, I walked through the door. There's my dad, there's my mom, they're all sitting there crying. And they're like, listen, Will, like, you need to try one more time. You need to try getting help one more time, not just for you, but for your daughter too. And at this point, I was defeated. I was extremely hooked on fentanyl by this point. My habit was disgusting. I, at this point as well, had been homeless in Newark, New Jersey for, it was like 9-10 months at this point. I was filthy. I had nothing to my name, scars all over my body. I was a twig. I probably weighed 110 pounds. And, when I looked at my mom in the eyes, I was like, there's no way. I was like, I'm not going back to treatment. I'm going to do this until there's nothing left. And she looked at me, and she was like, Will, one more time. She was like, you need to try something different. So she had found an individualized program in California. There's a maximum capacity of 6 people in that program. And so it was very personal, very one-on-one, exactly what I needed, but it's like what I didn't want to do because I knew I was going to have to deal with my shit. So I ended up going, and that program changed my life. I've been sober ever since. And I've done a lot of incredible things since being sober. I've come a very long way, and at one point I 100% believed that I was too far gone. Um, After failing so many times and 44 treatment facilities, like getting arrested every other month, going to jail here, different states, jumping around, like I was like, I'm a lost. I was like, this is what I'm gonna do until there's nothing left, until I'm probably not here anymore. But the reality of it is, nobody is like too far gone. Even though our heads tell us that, nobody's too far gone. Um, you know, I truly believe that, everybody, if they're active in an addiction and you're not buried yet, you're here for a reason. Because the stuff nowadays is no joke. And I think they say like the life expectancy of a person using fentanyl, which is in everything now, is like less than a year. You know what I mean? And you're using that stuff every single day, multiple times a day. So, yeah, man, it's been a long journey, but very grateful for where I'm at right now.
It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear your story. That's the first time I got to hear the full detail story, and obviously now we'll jump into details and different parts. But I'm proud of you, man, and I'm amazed, even as someone's been through it myself. It's sick to hear. First, I want to jump into is the treatment centers. So 44, you almost hit one for every state it could have been.
Might as well have been.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing, though. Just like you said, a lot of people harp on the downfalls. I think that's the highlight of, like you said, never give up. What do you think is the biggest thing you got out of that many treatment centers? I know you said the connections, and I've been there too. Sometimes it makes you worse.
Yeah.
But what do you think you got out of that?
So I think one of the most important pieces is like I'm stubborn and I never gave up on myself. There were times where maybe for a brief period where I was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I'm just going to use until I'm no longer alive. At the end of the day, I never gave up. And with each one of those programs I've been to, I took something with me, whether it was a piece of knowledge from an individual, whether it was a friendship, whether it was a relationship, whatever it was. But I believe every single one of those facilities served a purpose because, the universe does not make mistakes. And let's say I wasn't in a specific facility at a specific time, maybe I wouldn't be here anymore. Maybe I would have gotten a bad bag and I would have died, or unalived, like whatever the case is. So I took a ton of knowledge, I could probably, I mean, I remember it got to a point where, when the facilitators would come in, I would know at the moment they'd pull out, I'd be like, okay, relapse prevention. You know what I mean? Like, which isn't something to be like proud of, but I gave it my all when I was in that situation. I was trying my hardest, so it showed me what I was made of.
Absolutely. What do you think made the change the last time? That you were ready, or was it the place?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, the last time I went to get help, it was something completely different. I was used to going to these programs with like 20, 30, 40 people in it. And there's a lot of distractions, like when you have a co-ed facility with 30, 40 people in it. And this one only had 6. So, I was in there. I focused on myself. I had a great therapist. I was there like truly broken and not set aside. Like the facility was phenomenal and they did a great job. But at this point, I mean, I had just come off of like a mean, like 9-month bender, like I was like emaciated. I genuinely thought that, like my body was going to give out at that point. And, I was beaten, I had, that gift of desperation. And, at that point, I was willing to do anything. Once I, agreed, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to give this my all this time. I'm actually going to give it my all. And if it doesn't work out, at least I know I tried my best. You know what I mean? And it ended up working out. But I also, took suggestions. I listened to all the things that, like, I didn't want to do. I used to tell myself, if there was anything I didn't want to do, that means I needed to do it. Because my mentality, my thought process was so warped that, like, if there was something I truly didn't want to do, like go to a meeting pick up the phone when I'm having cravings, whatever it is. Like, that meant I needed to do it, not, hey, you can just not do it. Like, it was important for me to do all the things that, in the past that I kind of disregarded, because it's the truth. All this stuff that, they try to teach us and tell us, and whether it's AA, rehab, whatever, it's for a reason. It's not just a bunch of nonsense,
Absolutely. And what do you think that last intervention with your family, what do you think, for families listening, wanting to help their family or loved one, what do you think worked with your mom? Was it your mom, or what part of it?
So obviously at this point, I had my daughter in my life, and she even while I was using, like, I never was like away from her for an extended period. She was the most important thing in my world. Even while I was struggling, it was difficult for me. It was very painful being away. But, with my family this time, like, my mom had, when she looked at me and she was like, Will, try one more time. And if it doesn't work, at least I know my son tried his hardest. And, like, at that point, it, like, hit me. I was like, I'm, like, getting emotional. She's, like, pretty much saying, like, try one more time, give it your all, and if it doesn't work, and let's say you don't make it, I'm going to be content because I know you tried your hardest. And that's a scary thought for a parent, like, just accepting your child's fate, whatever it is. But for families right now, like, these substances that are going around are not normal. They are not by any means what they were 5-10 years ago. They are super drugs. And I say this all the time, like, fentanyl is another animal. It is not something where you can just at home curl up in your bed and sweat it out. Like, you need to seek help. And if you don't seek help, you can't expect the results you want. Like, it's very, very rare. I'm not saying it's impossible, because I'm sure there are people that can do it. But that mental, let's set aside the physical withdrawals, like the mental torture that comes along with, a fentanyl addiction or any form of addiction, really. But, it is, it's vicious, and it will trick you into, it's like, somebody used to tell me, like, addiction speaks to us in our own voice, right? It's like, it speaks to us in our own voice, and, like, does Will want to go use, or does my addiction want to go use? You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but to me, it always did. And, people need help. People need help. Like, families need to, as hard as it may be and as painful as it is, if a person isn't ready to get help, there needs to be boundaries. And most families, to be honest, the families end up just as sick sometimes as the person who's struggling, because, it's they're watching the most, loved person in their life slowly wither. And, the families usually need help as well. And, there has to be tough boundaries, tough conversations, and, the painful conversations and the painful acts that a parent needs to set. That's what's going to actually make an impact on their child. And it's difficult. It's not easy. But that's where, once my parents told me, they were like, hey, you want to use? You want to be like this bad? Go ahead. You're not welcome home. You're cut off. You have nothing. And don't call us, And that is where, from that point moving forward, I was in Newark, New Jersey. I was homeless, begging people, for change at the end of the drive-through. And at that point, I realized, when I had nothing left, no resources, no anything, I was like, this is not what I want. Like, it gets real when the resources get pulled, and you have to literally fight for your life and fend, for yourself at a on a daily basis, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week,
Yeah, I think the important part you touched on is that I always push when I'm facilitating, helping someone or a family, is that it's equal the pain as much as like me as an addict or you when we went through it. We're going through the family maybe even more because they don't understand it. At least we get to get high. Yeah. I always said that. You know what I mean? Like they just deal with the pain, the nervousness.
For sure. But that's where it comes into play. Where I think if a person is going to get help, the family should be seeking help too. Absolutely. You know, because there's trauma, there's damage that needs to be repaired. That's why recovery coaching, you know, specialists, like getting involved so they can learn about what their kid is going through is crucial. You know, I mean, if you don't have the knowledge of what your child is genuinely dealing with, the chances of you like holding firm and keeping true to the boundaries that you may set, it's not going to happen. You know, that's why coaching and, you know, therapy, whatever it may be, whatever a person chooses, it's important, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember after the first time my mom read my book, she was just like, I didn't realize, we knew you were stuck, but how just deep of a dark hole you were. And you think they know, but obviously I wasn't telling anybody how I felt.
And how hard it is to get out, man.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
You feel alone, but you're not alone.
That's right.
How is things with your family, your child? How's everything now?
Incredible. So today it's like weird. It's almost like, I always tell people, I've like lived 2 lifetimes in one, you know? Like I have my past, and today, like, it's almost like my past doesn't exist, you know? Like my family never, you know, we don't, like, I'm not judged. I'm never, you know, we don't talk about it, like, really, because to be honest, like, I've put in the work and I've done whatever it takes to get better. Like nowadays, like my dad is one of my best friends, you know? I mean, I wasn't, you know, I have a sister and she has 2 kids, my niece and my nephew, and I adore them. They're my, literally like my best one. Like I hang out with them like every day. So I wasn't even invited to my sister's wedding when I was active in my addiction. And today, you know, me and my sister, every single day, you know, 4:00, I get the kids off the bus. I hang out with we're finally like close again. And we had an 8-year gap where we didn't even talk. You know, me and my mom, will always kind of, but my mom's my mom. You know, mothers are always mothers. But now being on the other side of addiction and like understanding what they have gone through and how they never like gave up on me, and the pain that I put them through, the sleepless nights, like I tell them, I'm like, you guys are the warriors, like, because I could now being a father and having my own, you know, I have my 8-year-old daughter. Let me tell you, if you know, if the roles were reversed and I had to watch my child go through what I did, I don't even know. You know what I mean? But things are phenomenal. You know, it's something I never thought was possible. You know,
yeah, that's amazing.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and so now let's talk about a little bit where you're at today. You know, I know if you want to let everyone know what you do now, how you got there, the cool parts of it.
So obviously, as I spoke about throughout my journey, I've been to a bajillion treatment facilities, and I learned a lot of what these places do wrong. Picked up a lot of things on what they do right, and I figured, I'm like, when I got sober and I was in a position where I could help other people, I decided, like, I want to be a part of, you know, helping people. I want to start making a difference in the recovery community, in as many people's lives as I can. I want to make a difference. And I began working for the same program I got sober at, actually, is the program I started working with. I worked with them for about 3 years. And, you know, it's not that they were bad. Nothing bad happened. I just felt like there was a bigger purpose for me. My best friend, Connor, you know, me and him ran together our whole lives, and we ended up getting sober. He got sober a lot sooner than I did, but we chose to go ahead and start. We had no solidified game plan, but we were like, you know what? We want to open our own treatment facility. You know, we want to be able to have our own program that's ethical, that, you know, we can create and do anything we choose, like anything we feel that is going to better these people. That's what we're going to do. I remember he made a video and was like, I don't know how we're going to do it, but 6 months, we're going to own our own treatment facility. And me and him got to work. We got to work, and we actually found a program in California that had shut down, and we found a solution and worked out some things, and today we own that program. We have our own 6-bed individualized detox in Southern California. It's called California Wellness Center, and we help people every single day. It's been stressful, but it is one of the most rewarding things on this planet when, like, we try to build like very close relationships with the people that are walking through our doors. And it's not too common where you see like owners that are involved in the day to day and stuff like that. So, getting to know these people and building bonds with them. And then when they leave, their parents saying like, you saved my son's life, you saved my daughter's life. I'll tell you, it's no substance in the world could make you feel the way that feels. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's obviously being a business owner, it's not always like the easiest, but every single night, like I put my head on the pillow and I'm like, man, like I did good today. Like I didn't hurt anybody, I didn't cheat, I didn't steal, and I'm doing good for people. And like I truly believe when you do good, good always comes back, and karma's a real thing. The universe rewards people for doing the right thing. And so yeah, we have big plans. We're going to be hoping to eventually dip into other areas and sober livings. We want to kind of create this as something more of like we don't want it to be anything like some conglomerate, nonsense. We want to put our heart into it and our passion and, continue to help people. That's the goal.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I remember the first time we met, that's what hit me is, I'm a real good judge of character. And I just remember, feeling the trueness in you. And you kept just saying over and over again as we had coffee, you're like, just do the right thing. I just want to do the right thing.
That's right.
And it's so true that the universe always rewards that.
No coincidences, man.
So I think for the listener, this will be interesting for loved ones and people that struggle. When you're dealing with someone coming in, what do you feel like is when it fails, like on their end, like they don't end up sticking through? Because I know we both deal with a lot of people that reach out for help.
Yep.
In your eyes, what do you feel like, is the common denominator when people aren't ready? Is it just they're not ready? Is it outside forces?
No, that's a really good question. So we have, I have my TikTok, my partner has his, and we deal with hundreds and hundreds of people. And something that I notice very often is, like, without realizing it, people make, and it's like, I don't think it's intentional, people make excuses on why they can't get help. There's a lot of fear behind, going somewhere to change your whole life and pretty much, change everything you know. And, a lot of people have the fear of like, oh, I'm going to lose my job. How am I going to pay my bills if they're in a situation where they're functioning? You have a home, you have this, you have that, you have kids. At the end of the day, I tell people this all the time because it's the truth. Like, you are not going to ever lose, like, you need to set aside the fear and you need to do this because, to be quite honest, like, there's a couple outcomes with addiction, and it's like, nowadays, it's like more so people unaliving. Like, it's serious stuff. And, I always tell people, like, you're worried about your job and you're worried about your car payment, but you're not worried about getting a bad bag and no longer being here. Like, what's really, let's weigh it out. What's more important, like your life and your health, or, these things, these material things that don't even matter? Like, it's difficult because most people don't realize, like, in most cases, seeking substance abuse treatment, any form of like substance abuse treatment or mental health care, like, technically, like, you're not like legally allowed to be terminated for going and seeking any form of help like that. There's laws in place. There's certain things in place that are in favor for the person to get better. It's definitely scary to see because, it's like we're brainwashed while we're in it, you know, and we think that, you know, all these silly things that really, in the big picture, it doesn't really matter. But, you know, when we're in a narrow mindset, like, yeah, the car matters, you know, the nonsense Walmart job matters. Like, but at the end of the day, you're risking your life every day, and that's not enough, you know? So I think people need to set aside, you know, what's around them and think big picture here, because nobody's going to live another 20 years with a fentanyl addiction. Nobody's going to live another 20 years. I mean, there's not many addictions nowadays where you can go on the rest of your lifetime and not have complications, you know? So it's something we see a lot. You'd be surprised. We get like 13-year-old kids that are full-blown, I don't want to tell my parents, I'm struggling with fentanyl, I was taking these pills. These are children, like children that are, you know, doing this super drug that is killing thousands and thousands of people. And to me, that's terrifying. And like for parents, like, don't turn the other cheek. If you think your child is dealing with something, don't be ignorant because it's everywhere. It is everywhere, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think I want to touch on that right after, but I think the biggest thing for me is once I got sober was realizing I didn't live in reality. Like you said, I have people that I have to be honest with when they reach out for help, and they're like, yeah, but if I have to go to treatment or do this or do that, you know, what about my kids or this or that? I just explained to them, like, you realize there's a good chance you won't be there for the rest of their life.
That's
so
right.
That 30 days, I remember when I went away, it was, I think, Christmas, New Year's, my birthday. And I was worried about that, you know, but someone talked to me and they were just like, bro, you're going to be able to give them, God willing,
lifetime.
60 more years of good John.
Right.
And that kind of opened my eyes of like, yeah, you're right. Let's burn through this 40, 50 days, come back a new man, and now make sure every Christmas I'm actually there, because old Christmases, I was hustling stuff, going to meet a dealer, going to sell it to people, nodding out in my car and missing family stuff. So it's just good to be realistic. I always tell people, just be real with yourself and you'll become really successful. But let's touch on that. You've said that a couple times, and I talked this on a podcast I was on. I mean, we both have done probably almost every drug for years, and I think I'm honest with people. If I were to relapse, it'd be drinking. This is not the drugs we used to do. I mean, to me, it's suicide, you know, and I think it's so important for people to realize that. I mean, even, you know, Coke is not Coke. Like, not to glorify it, but we're the same age. What we used to get, we got. If I called someone for cocaine, I got cocaine. If I called someone for Percocet, it was Percocet. We did have fake pills, but they were like literally powder. It wouldn't hurt you. So let's touch on, like, you've touched on it, but I want to hear your perspective of someone from my age range too, of like the difference of when we used to what they're using today.
It's definitely another world. It's a different market, and to be honest, I think it's like, you know, I'm going to give an example. You know, during like my time while I was in and out of treatment, you know, I was, I think, 6 months sober, and this was right before I went to treatment. The last, like, you know, I had like 6 months of sobriety. I dropped my daughter. I had a great weekend with my daughter. I don't know what happened, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop in Newark on the way home. You know, I grabbed one bag, $5 bag. I didn't do it right away. I went to the Burger King. I hung out back home, you know, and John, I did like the tiniest smidgen, right? Like, it wasn't even enough it was nothing. And I remember I did it. I put my car in drive. I get onto the main road, lights out. I was actually, and that particular time, so I had overdosed, you know, ambulance, cops, it was a whole thing. And that particular time, I actually was pronounced dead at one point from that little smidgen, you know what I mean? So, you know, I think something that a lot of people don't realize is like the power that some of these subs, like, you know, and let's set aside, like, you know, fentanyl, they're putting it in everything. Like, it's been found they're even putting it in weed. There's been cases in California where, you know, kids in high school, they found it laced in their weed. And, you know, I think that it is a different animal today. Like, and the scary thing is like it's only getting worse. Like in Pennsylvania now, Kensington, there's this stuff going around. It's whatever. It's fentanyl with xylazine in it, and it's the Narcan no longer works against this substance. So not only and this particular stuff, it like eats holes in your body. So not only is it's horse tranquilizer mixed with fentanyl. Not only does the Narcan not work with it, but it's literally eating your flesh. And people are walking around still doing it. That should tell you how powerful this stuff is. Like, yeah, I mean, relapse is, nowadays, relapse isn't like, oh, like I'm going to go out and have a good time for a couple days. It's like you genuinely need to be in fear for your life. I'll tell you, like, thank God nowadays, like, I have had to go on interventions and, pull people out of dope houses. I've had to do all that. And by the grace of God, like, I get sick to my stomach when I see these kids, like, nodding out and, bags all over the place, needle, like, just the thought that used to be my reality. It's mind-blowing because that's not who I am. Like, I don't know, it's wild. We genuinely are, like, possessed while we're using that stuff. Alcohol, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be alcohol, like it could be weed, it could be coke. It's all the same stuff, and it all creates the same issues, and it all leads to the same place,
Yeah, it's a huge point. I always think to myself when I'm helping someone, at first, I'm a human, so it's like, what the hell's wrong with this person? And then the second question is always like, damn, what the hell was wrong with me?
Yeah.
Because I tell people that I feel like I was possessed, like almost, not in like a easy, like what you see in movies, like an evil, possessed way, but just like you say, I always say I was just on autopilot. Like I look back and I'm 100%. Like, damn, where'd 10 years just go? And I'm sober now. It's crazy.
There's been times, you say autopilot, that's a great, like way to describe it, because there's times where I genuinely did not want to use. Like I truly, with all of my being, I did not want to use, but I'm still driving to the spot, and I'm on my way there. I'm crying. I'm like, don't do this. But as I get closer, like that feeling would start fading. And then once I got there, I'd be like, screw it. I'm here. Time to do it. And like, and the same story would start. You know?
And that's how addiction is a disease. It takes over your mind. And they even talk about it takes over the primal part of your mind. That's why I guess they call it a disease, because it literally, you think you're not going to live if you don't have it.
That's right.
Deep down.
And for people who don't agree, you don't have to agree.
Yeah.
But pull up the DSM-5. It is categorized as a disease. I don't like calling it that because I know that's like, it's weird.
Yeah, it feels weird to me too.
But technically, like terminology, it is considered a disease at this point in 2024.
Scientifically.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So today, where you're at now, obviously you're thriving, killing it. What do you think are some of the tools that help you, stay spiritually fit and sober today?
Yeah. So to be honest, I when I got sober, the gym ended up being like a big part. And I'm sure that's like half the people that are in sobriety. But, for me, it was, I found a passion I didn't know I have, and it keeps me accountable. I go every single day. I don't eat like a pig. Like I focus on my diet. It's discipline. For me, like at this point, like I still go to meetings here and there. I do not go to meetings every day. I kind of live my life. I have a busy day every single day, and a lot of what like allows me to, continue my path and feel content throughout my journey is like, honestly, I truly believe if you could find gratitude like in everything in your day, like they say, like a grateful addict will never use, right? Like I genuinely like love being who I am. Like I love waking up in the morning, getting ready, hitting the gym. I don't go out. I don't party. I don't have like all types of, crazy nights and stuff like that. But I enjoy a calm and peaceful life. And for me, that was more so like, getting a routine for myself, allowing myself to be happy with who I am as a person. And this is going to sound corny as hell, but you need to love yourself. Like, if you don't love who you are, you're not going to want to cherish who you are. You're not going to want to take care of yourself. And you're not going to carry yourself with, you're not going to carry a strong presence with you, and obviously in the beginning for me, it was meetings and, a support network and, I was seeing a therapist. I needed everything I can get in the beginning, but as time went on, things got a lot better for me. It was, and to this day, man, like some people don't believe it when I talk to them, like where I'm at. They're like, oh, like you must have not been listen, like I worked so hard on this, like my life depended on it. Like for the first time, the last time I got sober, I knew my life depended on this. So I put full focus on getting better, learning how to, have a defense against this, self-development, like self-love, self-growth, everything. And let me tell you, man, there's not a single thing in my life today that could break me or tear me down or make me go back to who I was. I'm, nobody's bulletproof, but having confidence is definitely important. Not being cocky, but having confidence,
Yeah, and I think like you said, that's what I say to people all the time is that I put into myself those chips, by you
That's
working
right.
out, it's giving you a step forward away from your addiction,
That's right.
because like you have that love for yourself where it's like, why would you want to wake up hungover? You just ate well, worked out today, did all these
Yeah.
good things, having that self-respect. So we're going to knock it out, a few of our usual questions on here and get to just hear a little bit, a quick synopsis of parts of your story and just to motivate others. But
Yeah.
for starters, it's a kind of two-part question. First, what is, one of the rock bottoms or craziest parts of your addiction that you went through or stories that you have?
So I've hit a lot of like bottoms, well, at least I thought they were bottoms. It always got worse, but the last time, before I got help, the last time, it was the beginning of December 2019. I was homeless out there in Newark, and I was living in anywhere I could find, like, abandoned buildings, hallways, like random, Section 8 apartment, anywhere I could find like a place to rest my head. That's what I would do. And, you know, out in Jersey, it is another animal. It's not like the shit that you see in movies and on TV, like that still exists out in Newark. Like crooked cops, people shooting at each other, open air drug market. Like that's all real out there. And, I mean, I could go there. I have tons of stories, but just one that like right now is sticking out. Through these rehabs I've been to, I've met a lot of people, and I was living in this abandoned building, like, maybe a block and a half away from the dope hole that I used to go to every day. I wanted to be as close as possible. So I grab my stuff one day and I go back down to the where I was staying, this abandoned building, and every now and then you'd see other people walk in and out, like, and I saw a kid that I was actually, so one day, like coincidentally, I was in rehab with this kid like 2 years prior, and I ended up seeing him living in the same abandoned building out there. And this was like a, good looking kid. Like I almost didn't even recognize him. He was skin and bone, comes from a wealthy family. Like, this stuff does not discriminate. And when I was like, when I saw him, I was like, I thought I was seeing things. I was like, I don't want to say his name, but I yelled his name. And he turned around with this look on his face. And he was like bragging about the abandoned. He's like, yo, I got this sick setup. And I'm like just sitting there like looking at him. And I'm like, bro, this shit changes people. Like when I met him, like he was not that person, And like, you don't see it in yourself, but you see it in other people. And, that's just one piece. I mean, I've seen shootings out there. I've had, people stick me up one day at the park, this guy put a gun in my chest and made me empty my. There's been all types of stuff out there, and I've had a lot of unfortunate situations that my addiction. While I was out there, I was a white kid in a predominantly black neighborhood, and I was out there for the wrong reasons, and everybody knew why I was out there, and it was rough, dude. Every day was a fight for my life, and unfortunately, you see women that are pregnant, doing the same thing out there. You see men that are they're not gay men, but they do whatever they have to do for their substances, and for me, seeing things and going through it, there was a long time where, I didn't realize it in the beginning, but I had trauma from some of the stuff that happened out there. It was a lot of things I had to see that, nobody should have to see. Yeah.
And I can relate a lot. Now, the flip side of that, what is one of the coolest parts of your sobriety today?
One of the coolest parts is being able to be, I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I used to be so self-conscious. I used to actually, not like telling people I was in recovery, or, I hated the fact that I'm never going to be able. I love being able to now openly talk about who I am and what I've been through. And because if anything, I feel there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing, to hide. I mean, I love being able to openly talk about my past, but also openly talk about where I've been able to get to in a short, 4.5 years. It's incredible.
Love it. And what would you say to someone that's struggling today, looking to get help?
I would say look at the big picture. Stop worrying about the things that don't matter. Think about your life. And also stop being scared. You should be scared of unaliving. You should not be scared about seeking help. Nothing bad is going to come from trying to better yourself. Nothing bad. So I would say get out of your own way and talk to somebody who has gotten through what you're struggling with and make a move. Don't just sit at home and say, tomorrow, the next day, next Monday, next week. It's never going to happen that way. You got to go for it. You got to do it.
Yeah, my first trainer always used to say day one or one day. You choose.
That's right.
That stuck with me with everything.
That's actually a good, That's awesome.
Well, so I appreciate you coming on, man. Let everyone know where they can reach you at, whatever social medias you want to throw on.
Yep. So my TikTok is Rising From Falling, all one word, and my name is Will Milligram on Instagram. So.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you for listening to Get Lifted Podcast. Will, means the world. If you need help today, make sure you ask for help. And if you don't, make sure you show someone some love that does need it. Thank you for listening.